I know what it's like. You're a builder and you're out there doing your thing. And the last thing you want to do is come back to your office at night time and start thinking about business development. So what happens is, because things never get addressed and there's no real accountability measures, we do go to where the fires are the biggest, which is normally on a building site or winning the next job and doing the quote, etc. Looking forward, that 90-day forecast, it just does not happen. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. Welcome to you if you're in YouTube land. My name's Max, I'm your host, and I'm the CEO here at Smith & Sons here in Canada. Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks for joining us. All those that have been with us for the longest time, we appreciate you hanging with us, and we get a little bit of feedback now and then that lets us know that there's some of the things that are going on in this show that are actually helping. So I'm really glad to hear that. And if you've just joined us, thanks so much for dropping by. And we trust that you get some value as well, some things that you can grab a hold of and implement straight away. So this episode is going to be a beauty. Before I get started, like and subscribe, tick the bell, all that kind of good stuff. Leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, that hits my inbox and I will flick you back a response. If a response is required, be nice. Be nice to the Aussie. What else? Don't forget Facebook, Business for Builders VIP Facebook group. Get across there, and if you're a good sort, I will let you in. That is a space for subcontractors and general contractors, because I know that obviously a lot of us, and what I did was I was a subcontractor for the longest time, and then I moved into the full-blown builder role soon after that. When I say soon after that, I was doing that for 15 years. So anywho, what else we got to promote? Don't forget, if you are interested in chatting with me directly about business coaching services, get across to elitebusinessadvisory.com. Hit the book a consultation button. I'd love to spend half an hour with you just chatting about some of the things going on in your business life and how I might be able to help you. Don't forget too that the number on that Elite Business Advisory website, that is my WhatsApp number. So if you wanted to have a quick chat with me before booking a meeting, I'm down with that. Just keep in mind the time differences. If you're down under it, there's a little bit of a time delay or variation. Other than that, I think that's about the long and the short. Apparently leaving reviews for podcasts actually helps the podcast. So if you feel like you're motivated enough and you've got a little bit of value from the show, I would love a bit of a rating there, and please be kind. But anything that you do would be much appreciated. Righto, let's get after it today. Obviously I spend my life either dealing with builders in the franchise organization here in Canada that is Smith & Sons, or I'm now coaching internationally. Guys from all over the place in a couple of different industries, but in construction, but in a couple of different capacities. And, I think as I really fine tune what I'm doing with my franchise builders and with my coaching clients, and, having being past the COVID thing, and now also dealing with high interest rates and inflation and some of those challenges, a little bit of a lingering challenge with some of the supply chain issues. I think that really where we've got to be, and in keeping in mind that 50% of general contractors or builders will fail in the first 5 years, we really have to understand, we have to appreciate that is the case, and apparently 90% of builders go broke in the first 10 years. So what we've got to understand is that there is an epidemic, and it's not biological, it's probably more financial. Why do businesses go out of business building companies go out of business in the first 5 years, or 50% of them? And I think there's a lack of education around what it takes to develop business. And so after getting 30 or 40 emails, this is why I launched the Elite Business Advisory, so I could, in an official capacity, work with several builders and general contractors in a coaching capacity, and talk to them about their business on the fly and as we go, because I know what it's like. You're a builder and you're out there doing your thing, and the last thing you want to do is come back to your office at night time and start thinking about business development. So what happens is, because things never get addressed and there's no real accountability measures, we do go to where the fires are the biggest, which is normally on a building site or winning the next job and doing the quote, etc. Looking forward, that 90-day forecast, it just does not happen. And we don't sit down and put our 12-month goals and our 3 to 5 year goals and our 10-year big, hairy, audacious goals down. We don't sit there and have a think about it. We don't have a vision book. We don't have the affirmations that we read, to ourselves to help our mental state get in the right position before we go to battle every day. And so, guys and gals, it's really a case of these are the things that I definitely bring to the table when I'm talking to my general contractor, franchised operators, or my elite business clients. And because I just know I'm not here to show you how to renovate a kitchen or a bathroom or build a house or whatever. You should already know most of that. What I want to help you with is to make sure that you are marketing well, that your branding message is good, that your sales process is documented, and the way that you monitor the lifeblood of your business, there is a program in place. And so for all of my elite business clients or my Smith & Sons general contractors, builders, we use a piece of software as a meeting point. It's a biz dev, it's a business development or a business management piece of software that helps us with all of those things that I've just pointed out, things like KPIs, strategic plans, organizational plans or org charts. And so it's very strategic. And I know that if I just sold my guys a piece of software, that would go, not another piece of software. And so what the goal is every week we meet for 30 minutes and we really just try and double down quickly on what's happening in the business. Because I know that, like a lot of the time spent with me is positive and I love doing it. But I know that they've got to get back to the battle and really get amongst, managing projects and getting things done. So this is why we've got to have a fairly systemized approach. So all of that to say this: key metrics, percentages, and formulas. That may not be the that might not be the title of the show or of this episode, but that is what I'm going to quickly talk to you about. Now, two things happen. Now, if you are driving right now, I would maybe encourage you to hit those 3 dots and save this episode. You can do that. I do that all the time on stuff that I really want to listen to again or maybe listen to back at the office. So save this episode because I guarantee you're going to need a pen and a piece of paper or some way of sort of documenting what we're going to talk about shortly, because this is what I would call a fairly broad breakdown of the dashboard if you're a builder. This might apply to you if you're doing something else that is retail facing, but it's the percentages might be different. Remember that I deal mostly with builders, and so these percentages are what I know to be industry standard. And so this is something that you can actually, this has been derived from what we do on a day-to-day basis with my corporate business in conjunction with my franchised operators, but I'm also rolling it out with my coaching clients just to give them perspective on, okay, if you want this result, what are we doing in the lead up in the previous 90 days or 6 months to ensure that that happens in 90 days time from now or in 6 months time from now. So look, I think the baseline is we're not going to talk about the type of content marketing that you do or how regularly you should post on social media and how you develop that digital reputation. What we're going to assume is that you have got that going on. And we got to understand that, firstly, what is your conversion rate? Now, more often than not, when I chat to builders, they go, I don't really know what that is, Max. And it's totally cool. Industry standard for us, at the moment, it's about 21%. So easy to figure that out. You just take the number of projects, that you've won, and you figure out off the back of that how many leads that you got to win that many jobs, and that will tell you what your conversion rate is. So we're going to go through a bunch of metrics. That's one of them, and I'll come back to that. So we're going to look at monthly. Like every month, we want to take stock of the activity that's in our business. And then the other part to this is that we want to keep an eye on the running total, on the year to date. The year to date's important because if I'm trapping the year-to-date data, I can probably do a last 90 days assessment as well. So the first bunch that I'm going to talk to you about is going to be what you need to keep an eye on a monthly basis. This is where you're going to need a bit of a pen, and you want to put this into your own spreadsheet so you can monitor, but more so on the whiteboard, because every time that you get another lead, every time that you close another deal and sign another contract, every time you invoice, the client for a stage claim or what have you, that's got to go on the whiteboard. Because if you walk into my back office, you can see my whiteboard has got all of this data that's happening. Now, I'm a little bit old school, and I kind of like the whiteboard. I don't really like looking at a computer screen, although it's there. But this is what you can do that's fairly mechanical if you are a little bit old school like yours truly. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the inquiry value goal. Now, I always talk about the example that I give. I said, and most guys would be pretty happy if they had $1 million business. Some of you guys might be out there and you already have $1 million business. But for example, if you wanted to do $1 million worth of contracts or sales or however you want to slice it, then what you need is, and your conversion rate is 20%, you're going to need around about $5 million worth of inquiry, which is probably a little over $100,000 worth of inquiry per week. And so what I need to know is, do I need to do something different with my marketing if the lead gen is not happening? If I've got Google ads out there and I've got, social media advertising happening, if I'm not hitting those numbers, well, for starters, if you're not watching those numbers, how are you supposed to know what you're going to do with your marketing? So the knock-on effect, and this is what becomes very obvious to my builders when I start talking to them and coaching them and giving them some advice, is that they realize that it's not a one thing does it all. It's a lot of these things coming together, and you're pushing all of these forward simultaneously, which probably is a challenge, and it does sound difficult. However, what we're trying to do is, this is why I want you to go and get a whiteboard, a small-ish whiteboard that you can put this metric assessment tool up on that whiteboard so that you can know in advance or in real time where you're up to. So for me, when I know I've got an XYZ commitment per month to my builders as far as the digital lead generation, anything they do locally, they get back to us and let us know what's going on there. But anything that we do digitally goes on the board. And so, our goal might be for one of our builders who wants to do $1 million in sales. It might be, okay, we need to get him 100 grand's worth, or he's got to register $100,000 worth of inquiry every week, or 400,000 every month. And then, of course, right next to that is, okay, at the end of the month, what was the actual, so this is our goal, and what are we actually accruing? So every week that goes by, it jumps up 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000. By the end of the month, we need 400,000. What are our actuals? And this is no different. So like when you do an estimate, you'll go down and say, all right, this is my budget that I'm creating for this kitchen renovation. What was my actual spend? Okay, so here's our goal for inquiry. Our forecast build value. Now, we're in renos, so there's a lot of difference. It can go from a bathroom reno being 25 to kitchens being 100, to additions being 150 to 200, all this kind of stuff. So we have to be very itemized. Whereas if you're in new homes and that's all you do is custom homes and they're all about, 3,000 square feet or whatever, then you've got a little bit more predictability around those numbers. So for us, we've got to look at every single inquiry, put a forecast build value on it, and then put it on the board under the actuals. Okay, so obviously the inquiry forecast build. So what if we're looking at the 5 million? The other thing that I want to know is, how are we doing? Because in some cases we've had big weeks or big months, and then maybe a little bit softer the next month. So what I always want to make sure is, I want to know what's been happening this year as it relates to, let's say we're in September now. Are we on track with the amount of lead gen that we need? And I say to my team a lot, it's like, I need to generate 12 months worth of inquiry in 11 months, because the December month is always a little bit skinny. No matter whether you're down under or whether you're in North America, it does slow down for a couple of different reasons. And so we got to make sure that we don't just go and calculate it maybe over 12 months. So maybe we've got to do $110,000 a week to ensure that we bank enough so that during the December, early January program, we're not left short. So it's always about figuring out, where are we up to in the month of September? Are we ahead of the game or are we behind the game? That will then tell you that you've either got to spend more money on marketing, and of course there's a percentage for that, or we've got to improve our marketing. So sometimes it's not just throwing more money. If your content is shitty and ordinary and doesn't really engage the marketplace, then obviously throwing more money after a bad ad or a bad campaign is not going to help you at all. The other thing you've got to obviously focus on is the total number of contracts signed. The other good thing about when you start tracking it like this, and I would recommend that, yes, you put this into a spreadsheet, because then what you can start to do after a couple of years is you can start to see trends. So just like I said, well, in 11 months, we've got to make sure that we have 12 months worth of inquiry. You can also know that during some of the summer months, perhaps, it's going to be a little bit slower. And so you can either be ready to do some more stuff before the slow period in the year, or you can be ready to come out the back of school holidays and hammer down and maybe double your marketing budget for 4 to 6 weeks, or whatever the case may be. So this is why you've got to know your numbers. And I know that sounds pretty cliche, but at the end of the day, if you don't know what speed, what altitude, all of the important things, all your vitals, then you really can't forecast. So I sit there and ask business owners, well, where do you want to be in 12 months? I just want to be able to pay my bills. Yeah, okay, so does every other office worker out there, right? So if we are actually in business, so I talk about, I don't know if you've heard of, you may have heard of Robert Kiyosaki, and talks about the cash flow quadrant. And he talks about, he has this, and you can't see this in podcast land, but he's got this 4-way cross going on. And so it's a square divided into 4 quadrants. In the left-hand side, you've got employee and self-employed. And then on the right-hand side, you've got business owners and investors. And the difference between the left-hand side of the quadrant and the right-hand side is that the left-hand side trades their time for money, hours for dollars, right? On the right-hand side, they have money making money. So when we say that we're business owners, we're not really, because we're still trading our time for an hourly rate. And so, until such time as you can have a really good understanding of what your business is doing, not just in the next 90 days, but in the next 12 months, then and only then can you really start moving into that situation whereby now you're running a business. And so that's why the business, when I come on board with, business owners as an elite business coaching consultant, I am their business development manager essentially. So there's a level of awareness that I bring to the relationship, the education, and then the accountability. And so, if you're not able to engage my services as a coach, I'm trying to give you a bit of a heads up and a bit of a head start. But of course, if you can find it somewhere within your budget, guys that say to me, Max, I can't afford your coaching, they're probably the folks that are going to need it the most. So just figure out a way, sell something, get rid of some extra stock, do something just to get to the position where when you chat with me, we can do a bit of a forecast, and maybe in 2 months you can come on board because you've won another job or whatever. But this is what I do. I'm going to ask the hard questions. And you know what? The guys do appreciate it, because they go, well, that's why you're here. And it's to be the guy that's sort of demanding some metrics be established. And a lot of the time, we have to do forecasts off the back of no historical data. Matter of fact, the only historical data that we really do that's reliable is maybe what I've experienced myself, and then I sort of combine that with what's happening in their business. So knowing when you sign contracts during the year where it starts to be a bit of this is the time of the year when we really start to get, I know that leads go quiet just before kids go back to school and in the first week or two after the kids are back to school. Everyone's busy just setting their kids up in school or whatnot, but then it resumes a couple of weeks later. So when you look at those contract signings is a way to really identify during the year, and especially if you've got 2 or 3 years worth of metrics, that helps. And that's why you got to start tracking the metric, because if you don't, you can never ever, you've got nothing to fall back on to understand when and what time and how your business works, even if there is some economic discomfort like inflation or interest rate hikes and things like that. Other thing you got to keep an eye on a monthly basis is your fixed expenses. You got to know. That's all I'm saying. I don't care what you spend on your business per month. You just got to make sure that your fixed expense doesn't exceed, if you're a builder, 15%. If you're a subcontractor, maybe it's more like 20%. But you got to make sure that you're not just going and doing more revenue and making less profit because you've had to increase your, payroll to actually achieve those increased sales. So you've got to be looking at that. And then based off your fixed expenses, you've got to understand what it is, what's your break-even point. So I think I've got if you're not a part of the Business for Builders VIP Facebook group, I think I did a video over there about knowing your numbers, and one of those was fixed expenses, and then how do you calculate the fixed expense, and then work out what my break-even billable is going to be for the month, or what it has to be. And then, of course, you want to make sure you know what your profitable billable mark is as well. You don't want to be just hitting your break-even point, although that is good. You want to make sure that you're creating some operational capital on, every month in, month out, because then you can. And the thing is, what we can't really tell what's going on in your business just looking at 1 month. What we can do is look at 90 days, and then we can start to see trends. And so, we're doing a revenue assessment is a great way. It's like, okay, 3 months ago, I had 75 grand in the bank. Now I'm over here. The business hasn't really progressed. Now I've only got 20 grand in the bank. So there's a vulnerability because the trend every month it's been going down and we're going, what's going on? Why are we not showing cash at bank? And so, having our profitable billable goal per month where you go, okay, I need to be at this for break even point. But normally I just recommend 15% on top of your break even point. That's where you start to go, okay, I'm in that realm where I'm starting to make money, and do that consistently. Now what you're doing is when you start looking at these, and then of course there's the actual monthly billables, like what have we invoiced for? And then really all of that, comes together, and you got to start looking at, your work in progress accounting or your over under billings, because you've got to know what your equity position is. There's no point in no one, thinking that 150 grand in the bank is all yours and you've got to nick off and buy a new truck and a jet ski. Because more often than not, because you don't know where you're up to, next month you need all of that money to pay your bills. And especially if the sales next month are not there, then you're definitely going to fall into a big hole. So what we're trying to do is take away the hills and valleys, because they're imposters. People get high on their own supply when it's high, and then they get all doom and gloom when it's in the valley. What we're trying to do is really make it evergreen. We're trying to have some up and down, but moderate it. And really, like when we can modulate or moderate or regulate our advertising spend a little bit up and down according to what the demand is, and our project start schedule is starting to fill up next year, and then we're saying to people, look, we need to get started on this now, because if we do get started now, I can see me fitting you in and starting your project on April the 7th or whatever next year. If we don't do that, I've got another client who's pretty keen to get started then, and I'll have to put them in there and then move you back. And so, this is just a side note before I jump into the year-to-date metrics. You guys and gals, the only way, it's like you would have heard the term feast or famine, and it's true. But the reason it happens that way is because we're so reactive. We don't go and, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to advertise. And normally the advertising budget, I would say for most builders, is a minimum of 1% of their target revenue. That's kind of where we sit currently, and I'm servicing 5 builders at the moment. And so our marketing spend is about 1% of our overall revenue thus far during the year. And so what we want to make sure is that we're regulating all over the place. And so part of that regulation, so 3 things are going to happen. You're going to regulate your marketing and your marketing spend. You're going to reduce the amount of what we call turnover in the way of humans. So, you're all of a sudden you're busy and you're caught short. You don't have enough humans, and then you get a bunch of humans on. Then the work slows off, and you got to let good guys go. That is highs and lows. That's hills and valleys, right? So what we're trying to do is make it evergreen. So the way we do it is we make sure our marketing message is good. We're making sure that our spend is under control and is appropriate. Then we go on a recruitment spree to start with, to figure out, what we can get, who can we get. And then the other thing that we must do is we must schedule our jobs in advance. So when people come to us and go, Max, we must have you start next month. Well, it's going to be too bad, because it don't work that way. If they need it started next month for whatever reason, great, go find someone else, because we can't do it. What we can do is we could probably start you in late April next year. That's because the thing is, if you've got good messaging, good branding, good digital reputation, then you have good top of funnel, you have a good documented sales process, you have good labor that you've recruited through psychometric profiling, you then have the ability to set up, because you understand how much you can build in a year, and so you have your project start schedule organized. Then what you'll find is you'll actually get back in the control seat, especially when you're looking at these metrics and these key metrics and these data points, and you'll start to actually understand where your business is at today, which I am telling you, most guys and gals that are operating contracting business right now have no clue. They're just like, if I've got enough money to pay my bills this week because they're screaming, that'd be awesome. And I understand that. But now that you know, there's no excuses, right? So be sure, if you want to get in contact with me and ask me a few questions about this, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. The email will be in the notes of the show. Alternatively, go and check out elitebusinessadvisory.com, and you can hit the contact button, or there's a WhatsApp number up there. You can flick me a message as well. There is no reason why you can't get a little bit more information out of me for free. There you go. And so what we want to make sure, and so to get that progress start schedule, organized. What you need to understand is, what is your average contract value? What is the scope that you normally do for that contract value? And how long does it take you to do that? So that's how you can literally in advance go, okay, I should be able to do, if kitchens are worth 100 grand and bathrooms are worth 25 grand, and I'm just going to do $500,000 worth of work, then that's 3 kitchens and 4 bathrooms. A kitchen takes 12 weeks, a bathroom takes 3 weeks. Do the math. See, get in control of your business. What we fail to do is think about our business. And that's where we have that saying, don't work in your business all the time. You got to work on it occasionally as well. This is working on your business. What I'm asking you to do is to think about how you govern your behavior within your business. How do you monitor the events and the activities within your business, right? So I just quickly run through the month's metrics. Some year-to-date metrics would be, you're always going to keep an eye on your conversion rate. See, that's where I started the show, is talking about the conversion rate. That's not something that, you want to look at it at the end of the month. So you look at, what are we doing that month for conversion rate, because that'll tell me what my behavior was like in the last 30 days. But then I also want to look at it over the last, let's say, 8.5 months if we're in the middle of September now. So that's always important, because what that tells me, if you're one of my clients and your conversion rate is 15%, I'll be like, okay, that's below industry standard as far as I'm concerned. Let's talk about how you're going about selling. Like, what are you getting back to clients in time? How do you deliver the proposals? Are you doing it email instead of in person? Like, that's what I'll be looking. So it's where we are really priding ourselves right now as responsible business owners on making data-driven decisions. We don't just make decisions based on how we feel or if someone's pushing back on us. It's like, no, time out. Let's have a look at the data. And the data will inevitably tell you something. And so in this regard, if my guy's conversion rate is not at 20%, then I might need to have a quick chat with them about how they're going about selling. What's the sales process look like? Are they following up? Are they getting the quotes out on time? Those sorts of things. Are they communicating at the highest level? Or are people getting pissed off and then just ghosting them? Whatever. So I'm looking into that. Looking at the inquiry values, what's your forecast build value on the inquiries that you've got thus far? Are we on track? Are we over? Are we undersupplied, ourselves as far as key inquiries? And then we can start looking at what have we spent on marketing? And then based off of the amount of jobs that we've won versus the dollars that we spent on marketing, we can come up with what we call a customer acquisition cost. And so what you'll do is you will take the number of jobs you've won, you'll divide that into the money that you spent, and that will tell you what your customer acquisition cost is. So your customer acquisition cost should be between, say, $225 and $450 per client. Right now, my company across 5 builders, we're at about $330 odd customer acquisition cost based on the numbers of jobs that we've won this month versus the amount of money that we spent. So if you're at home and you got your calculator, I think we've spent about 21,000-ish on marketing, and we've won about 67 jobs this year. So if you can divide the 67 into the 21,000 or thereabouts, then that'll tell you what my customer acquisition cost is, and that's how you'll need to do it to keep an eye on yours as well. So if you've got a customer acquisition cost at $1,000, then there's obviously something going on. You're spending more money than you're closing deals. You need to look at maybe, and then if your conversion rate is at 10%, that's going to tell me that's why the customer acquisition cost is so much. And so this is why everything that I'm talking about, it does reflect in different aspects of your business. And so it's not like we just want to keep an eye on this. I had a meeting with one of my coaching clients, and he was looking at the fact that his average contract value was $400,000. So he's looking at the amount of inquiries that he's get. His customer acquisition cost might be quite high, considering. So I've got to go and do some maths around that to contextualize the concern that he has, or the query, or the question that he had, as it relates to the customer acquisition cost. All right. So you always got to keep an eye on the total number of projects. If you're in a QuickBooks or a Xero, that's a pretty quick way to help you out with that. But every time you win a job, you just mark that number. The actual fixed expenses, you can average out all of your overheads and then divide it by the number of weeks or months, and that will tell you per month, per week, what your fixed expenses or your overheads are. Obviously, understanding what your operating costs for the whole year or have been is super important. And obviously the total number of billables. So how much money have you invoiced for? Because don't forget, contracts are one thing. But we want to make sure, and of course, every time you sign a contract, you might get a 5, 10, 30, 50% down payment or deposit, and that's great. But then we want to make sure we start, delivering on, the contract. And so we don't just want the down payment. We want to make sure that we're underway, get into the next progress draw as soon as possible for those of us that are doing fixed price. And then obviously you guys doing cost plus. I don't know how you calculate your forecasts because it's all on a bit of a week to week. Okay, we can bill for something unless you're billing every month. I'm not sure how that works. Obviously, I want to track the amount of money that I've spent on marketing for sure, because that then I can really calculate. I can use that number to calculate whether I'm spending adequately and appropriately enough, and it also helps me with my customer acquisition costs as well. And then something else that's super important is what is my gross profit. Now, this is going to take a little bit of book work. This means you're going to have to be doing back costing. And so really it's you need to know what your GP is, because out of that GP is going to tell you if you're not making any gross profit, it's pretty hard to keep your overheads paid. So look, guys and gals, net profit needs to be 10% minimum. Your gross profit for us builders needs to be 30%. Fixed expenses need to be capped at 15% if you're a builder, maybe a little bit more if you're a subcontractor. And your inquiry lead goal will be 5 times whatever you want to do revenue. So if you want to be a $10 million business, then you are going to need to generate $50 million worth of inquiry. So, and I do the 1% on 50, do the 1% on 10 million. That's going to be your marketing spend. And so, really, you just want to, just consider putting them up on a whiteboard so you can monitor. And then at the end of the month, you take a bit of a photo, on your phone, and then enter that information in a periodic database or a periodic spreadsheet. And that will just help you, really understand how your business performance is. We call these types of things key performance indicators because they indicate the performance of your business. So we've got to have the key metrics. We've got to understand how the key metrics interface with each other and the importance that it plays on how it is that you exercise or, head up the activities with your business, in and around your business, because everything does tie to each other. Now, in wrapping up, marketing is always a little bit of a tough one for people to understand, but understand this. Grant Cardone says that money follows attention. And so, you've got to be really out there doing a lot of organic stuff. And I've said this before, if you've got some organic stuff that's out on social media and it really does resonate with your marketplace well, that might be something you might consider using in your sponsored advertising on social media and also on Google. And so, that's really important to understand that money follows attention. And of course that your profit really is determined by or is tied to your marketing budget and your marketing as well. So, guys, I think a lot of the time it's pretty, like I say to a lot of my clients and my builders, well, not so much my builders in Smith & Sons because they've got that taken care of for the most part, 80 or 90% of that. But, there's bound to be somebody in your community right now that is looking for somebody like you to do a project that you can do or you can build. Like the problem is that the dots don't ever join up. So, again, if you're on YouTube, podcasters, here is you, the builder, and here is the client. And what you've got is this chasm in between. You've got to build a bridge between you and your business and the services that you offer and those homeowners or prospective clients, so you can at least have the opportunity to present a deal and give a proposal and maybe win a job. So, I don't know that it's bad to put a newspaper ad. I think it's good if you're a smaller community. But in this day and age, we just don't get the data on it. We don't know how many people have seen the ad. And so it's really difficult to really trap any data. However, everything on, social media, we do have a really good understanding of the performance of the advertising spend. So we do subscribe to spending, more money on digital than we do on print media and traditional types of marketing. So, look, I think that pretty much wraps up some key metrics, the percentages and formulas. If you've got any questions about that, email me, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. Go and check out elitebusinessadvisory.com. If you've just dropped in for the first time, appreciate you hanging with us for this long. But it is all about your dashboard, people. You need to know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you are flying blind. And then it's only a matter of time before you lose altitude, i.e. cash, and really end up as the statistic, which we don't want. And honestly, right here and now, on my conference room wall, my purpose is, to help general contractors and builders succeed and subcontractors if I can do that. And so, we've got to turn this epidemic around that says 50% of builders in 5 years will go broke or go out of business, and then 90% of what's left goes broke in 10 years. See, that's got to be fixed through education. And guys, just please, 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 if that is the metric that's in front of you, understand that you are doing exactly the same thing that those people that went before you did. And so here's a survivor, if you like, who has done his fair share of shit wrong. There is no question. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to turn the Titanic. I'm trying to change trajectory. But, a lot of the time, guys and gals can be, look, nah, she's right, I got this. And they just ain't got shit. And so please just think about your future and your family's future and start understanding and recognizing. Do not put your head in the sand. I am telling you, I'm a 34-year veteran in the construction business, and I haven't seen it all, but I've seen enough. And I'm telling you that if you don't take stock and don't start to educate yourself around the areas of business principles, business development, human resource management, financial management, all these sorts of subject matter, you're going to have a hard time. And I understand it's impossible for us to go back to school, so we kind of get forced into learning on the fly, which is not a bad thing. Instead of going to university and paying, having an education debt, now you might want to recruit someone like me to be your business development manager on contract. I think, I don't want to blow smoke up my own skirt, but how is that a bad thing? It's essentially you've got someone like me on payroll on a monthly basis that you can converse with and you can use as a soundboard, and we can shoot the shit as far as strategy. I'm telling you, figure it out, because it is going to give you and your company, A, competitive advantage in the marketplace, and B, you will not be a statistic. The end. I'm pretty committed to that not happening. You need to educate yourself, have some accountability measures in place, and get some awareness into your life. Someone's got to speak into your life. So please find someone that can. If it's not me, find someone else who can do it for you, because I'm telling you, we are just trained to knock nails into wood, and that is it. Be sure to get across Facebook, Business for Builders VIP, private Facebook group. Hit the join button if you're a good sort. I'll let you in. Get across to elitebusinessadvisory.com. Be sure to leave us a comment in the comment section if you're on YouTube. And don't forget to hit me up on email if you've got any questions, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. Go build a kick-ass business. Have a great time doing it, and I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.